everyone. Hopefully, this is coming in loud and clear. Um, what you are looking at, you're looking at my screen here, and some information to get us started. So as we open up Module 1, really what we want to kind of think about as we enter into the course via Module 1, two questions we should ask ourselves. What biases might I have coming into the course? Um, Hopefully, we understand that word bias. We know what that means. Our preconceived notions, ideas, understandings about ourselves, about the world, about how we fit into the world, as our immediate environment, um, the what we listen to, the people that we are around, who are our primary people who are shaping our thoughts and ideas and understandings. We call that a worldview. People who are shaping our worldview, the experiences that we have, all of those things create biases in us. In other words, we think about the world in a certain kind of way. We understand it in a certain kind of way, and we tend to feel like we're right, and and other people are wrong, and that's just that's natural. Our worldviews, again, they help us to understand the world, and it's really difficult to understand the world outside of what you know. Um, and so the word bias doesn't necessarily have to be a negative word. We all have a bias, and it just simply means the slant um, on through which or on which we view ourselves and our relationship with the outer world. So just think about that. What biases might you have coming into the course? And then further, what social issues, since we're talking about social issues in this class, what social issues are most important to you? And you don't have to have a very clear definition of social issues yet, as you're just doing some pre-thinking. It's, you just take that term social issues and just make of it whatever you make of it, and ask yourself, what social issues, if I think I understand what we mean when we say social issues, what's most important to me? Okay, and so that just kind of gets your head starting to think. It's like pre-knowledge. This is what I already know before I even start this course. And I'm going to find that some of what I know is actually correctly aligned, and some of it needs a little bit of correction or expansion or development, any of that, so that you walk out of the course with more than what you walked into the course with. Not necessarily better, but more. I mean, and hopefully it would be better as we are growing our knowledge. So Module 1 is going to help us to answer the question, what is a social issue? It's going to help us to answer the question, how social issues impact our own social experiences, right? Again, we all have experiences. It's just part of what shapes our worldview. Well, the social issues that are all going on around us help to impact the experiences that we have with that knowledge bank. And then the last question that Module 1 will help to answer for us is, how differing perspectives or differing worldviews, how might those help us to evaluate social issues? So I have my worldview, right? My particular perspective on who I am and my personal social cultural identity, and my experiences that come with all of that, my value system, and how all of that helps me to understand the world as the world is moving and being around me, right? That's my worldview. That creates my set of perspectives. Well, how might Differing perspectives help me to evaluate, reevaluate, consider the social issues that are going on around me. Um, that's all module one and what we're trying to answer in module one to kind of get us started. Um, and so in thinking about what we're going to think about and begin to answer for ourselves, I wanted to talk to you very quickly about Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. This is one of the theories that is central to my work as a professor. Um, and is very much oriented in who I was when I was teaching kindergarten through 12th grade. It also is who I am still as a college professor. And so I look at ecological systems theory as an educator, looking at the child and how the child then develops, particularly through the education system. But it's a much broader thought process than simply from an educational standpoint. And I've got the little link here. You can look it up on simply psychology.org if you want to know a little bit more about it, and it shows you just kind of the different ways you can apply this theory to your thinking. But this is about biases, okay? Really. Ecological systems theory basically says that we all grow up in an ecosystem. That ecosystem, if you think about a terrarium or from a biological standpoint, we think of a plant or a little animal, little creature. There's a whole environment. Let's think about it from the standpoint of a plant, a particular plant in its biome. There's a whole environment. It has soil, it has a water source, it has insects around it, it has other plants around it. All of those things influence the life and health of that plant. Well, people are kind of like that. We we have an ecosystem that shapes our worldview. And that ecosystem is very personal, very individual. Each one of us has our own, even though our ecosystems might cross in certain ways, we all have our own. Um, and it is this ecosystem and the experiences that we have with this ecosystem that influences our perception. It influences our biases, right? Um, and so, as you are thinking about your module one is going to talk about confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a particular type of bias that is very much um, um, governed by the ecosystem, your ecological system in which you are born and raised and move and breathe, etc. And every contact that you have that helps to shape your experiences and what you know and what you think about all of that. So if you think about the center being the person, that's you, right? Then the immediate system around you is going to be your family system, that immediate structure that has helped to shape you from the get-go, from the beginning of your life. And that family telling you who you are and what you are and how you know what the expectation is, what your culture is, um, all of that stuff that helps to shape you within the family network. And then you have out here this immediate community. In the mesosystem, in the immediate community, really what it's doing is it's bridging the institutional community, which is going to be your schools and your services out there in the community, the fire, police, the everything that is part of our institutional systems, the healthcare system, the educational system, the policing system, you know, all of that, that's all out here. And this immediate community here, um, family, and in your immediate community you might even consider kind of family, friends, or friends in the neighborhood. That might be kind of the neighborhood idea, but there's a communication that's happening between these different systems here. Who your family says that you are and how you relate to the world, when it is in it's contrasted by the institutional community. When your healthcare system or your educational system says, no, that's not who you are, you're somebody else. Or maybe even out here, your political system and your social structure starts to give you a different picture of who you are than your family gave you, then we start to have real issues here. We start to have what we might call identity issues with our own sense of identity. Um, and it can be a positive thing to get us to grow and become stronger and more healthy and have even a healthier sense of ourselves in the world, or it can be a negative thing. It can work either way. But these are the different, kind of parts of the ecosystem: your immediate ecosystem, then your community ecosystem around you that is either supporting your family or in contention with how you're developing and understanding yourself. Um, then there's the institutional, then the political and social, and all of these things are communicating with your identity. They're all communicating with your worldview, and they're contributing to your worldview and contributing biases, either to help to firm you up or to do something a little bit more nefarious, which is to cause you to be in contention with your own sense of good self. So just kind of think of it that way as you're thinking about confirmation bias, the influences on your perception. They're all coming from your own personal ecosystem. And of course, it's personal because you're the only you, and your family is impacting you as an individual, and the immediate community, the institutional community. They might all be impacting your group, but however you might kind of define that group, whether it's ethnically or from a gender standpoint or from a where you live, are you from the Bronx or are you from Manhattan, or like where? These things all are again going to influence your perception of yourself and of the outer world and how you relate to that outer world. Okay? So just kind of consider that. I'm going to send you an interesting video, which you're going to watch babies, and they're talking about biases and how biases form, and the idea that a bias, again, is not necessarily a bad thing. A bias really kind of, if you get all the way down to just kind of who we are as human creatures, that it's something that's almost instinctive in us to want to align ourselves. And this is kind of talking about confirmation bias. We want to align ourselves with people who agree with us, because at the very base of our nature is the need to survive. And so we do somehow understand that grouping together in a community group is helpful to our survival. That we don't survive as well by ourselves. We survive best in a group. There is safety in that group, survival safety in the group. And so forming those group alliances often occur by way of like-mindedness, right? And so really, really interesting. I love this video, and it's helpful to us that we're looking at babies, because it I guess it gets us to kind of loosen up and be a little bit more open to kind of what is a bias, why is it shaped, how is it shaped, and just to realize that, oh my gosh, this is something that's in our DNA as human beings to do this, and it really is designed to help us to survive. The problem is that that need to survive can get somewhat perverted, and we use that instinct kind of against our own selves in a certain kind of way. So just really interesting. Um, and most important in all of this conversation, as you are considering all of these things, to me, and this is what I'm going to leave you with. Last thing is that most important is to open yourself up to listen to others who come from a different ecological system, people who have different experiences, different worldviews. It doesn't mean that you have to buy everything they're selling, right? You don't have to agree with everything, but you really can't tell somebody, no, that experience you're having, that's not a true experience. How would you know? Because it's not yours. You only know your own experience. And so it is helpful, as we are one large community where we don't have to agree with one another. In fact, that would be a boring world if we agreed with one another on every issue. But we do need to learn to not polarize away from one another. In other words, we're all in the ring in our own corners and we refuse to come out of our corners. We need to be able to have that dialogue, and that dialogue requires some humility, some open-heartedness, and it requires us to stop talking and to listen, genuinely listen, and hear a little bit about somebody else's experience to help us again to shape up what we think about something. And what we think about something is always in flux, it is dynamic, never static. What we think is always open to renegotiation in our mind. And again, that does not mean that we depart from everything that we think and believe. It just means that we might reshape it a little bit. And in some cases, we might totally change our minds. Um, who knows? But we do need to give ourselves and our community the opportunity to hear each other, to even consider the possibility that we might need to develop our ideas, our thoughts, what we think and what we believe a little bit to at least better understand another perspective. Okay? And I will leave you with that.